A lot of the movies that I made in my early 20s and my late 20s are sort of the movies that made me who I was. I was always really clear about what I wanted to express. Even I remember doing Legally Blonde and thinking, this isn't a story about a ditzy girl who goes to Harvard. It's actually about a woman who's very substantive, but is unapologetically feminine. And the two can exist at the same time.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard? You didn't have to be strident and look a certain way to be considered academic or serious. I mean, also had fun with feminism.
It did look like you were having fun.
I had so much fun.
We had fun.
I know. And it's been, that role changed my life in so many ways.
And as she built her career playing strong women, Witherspoon was equally strategic off-screen, watching who had influence and who didn't.
I dread reading scripts that have no women involved in their creation because inevitably I get to that part where the girl turns to the guy and she goes, what do we do now?
So what do we do now?
So what do we do now?
What do we do now?
Now, do you know any woman in any crisis situation who has in any crisis who has absolutely no idea what to do?
You set out to create a company that would change the conversation for women. Does it feel like you're going forward?
I think it feels like we are taking the right strides forward. But even if you look at the statistics, it's not 50-50. There's still a deficit of female directors, a deficit in screenwriting, but it's making meaningful change. I mean, the numbers, the percentages are jumping. And I think the consciousness around it has totally changed. It's like the lights are on. You can't pretend that you don't know that we aren't hiring women and people of color for these jobs. So there's definitely more of an acceptance that stories aren't just need to be told by the same 20 filmmakers over and over again.
How much progress do you feel you've made so far?
I think there's been a lot of progress since I started. I really started, the first iteration of this company was around 2011. It was just a wildly different time. There wasn't streaming, there wasn't instant gratification with social media. We really got ramped up around 2016.
In 2011, Reese founded Pacific Standard, a production company championing women's voices with films like Gone Girl and Wild. By 2016, she'd scaled that vision into Hello Sunshine, a full-fledged media company behind Big Little Lies.
I feel so ashamed for saying this, but being a mother is not enough for me.
The Morning Show.
The part you guys never seem to realize is that you don't have the power anymore.
And her wildly popular book club.
Your book club now has a massive influence over the publishing industry. By some estimates, it's bigger than Oprah's. How do you view that power?
I have a sort of a tricky relationship with the word power, you know? It doesn't feel like power to me. There's definitely a feeling of maybe influencing people towards literacy by shining a light on things that I think our main metric at Hello Sunshine is like, is it shareable? Because I want to build community around reading. I don't want you to read it and feel siloed and you don't want to have a conversation. I love that idea and that energy of people sharing things and talking about them and creating conversation. And my original idea was, what I really dreamed about was taking the book club out of your living room and into this global community online. In some ways, this today is like taking it back down to its essential elements. And having so many authors here is such a thrill for me because those are my rock stars. Yeah. Authors are my rock stars.
You've got books, you've got podcasts, movies, TV, obviously, live events. What era is Hello Sunshine in now?
Well, I think we're beyond the beginning, right? One of my favorite things about being part of a company like this is it's ever evolving. So it feels like it's always growing. And then we're young enough and new enough that we can pivot.
What was the hardest lesson you had to learn, and how did you push through it?
I think the hardest lesson for me was, even if you have great creative ideas, it doesn't mean you have the business plan to back it up. So I've learned a lot of hard lessons in business, you know? If certain verticals don't work, you have to really look at them critically. Even though you think it's a good idea, it doesn't mean it is. And it doesn't mean that you should stop taking risks, but you need to understand that you can't continue to risk if things aren't providing economic value. So it's this constant battle in my mind between the art of things and the commerce of things. I came from the middle of America, and I loved big, poppy, public content, like popular films, and I loved television shows. I watched hours of it after school. So I've always gone to that place of, how does this speak to people? How does this make people feel? And I do think there's always a world where you can do well and do good at the same time.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics, and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this a new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacroix, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
Why do the biggest names in business choose Bloomberg Television?
That's a great question.
Very good question.
Interesting question.
Good question.
Great question.
I so appreciate that question.
You certainly ask interesting questions.
Bloomberg Television. Top experts, great questions.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
As Hello Sunshine found its footing, so did a new Hollywood trend. A wave of celebrities building out their own media empires. LeBron James, Kevin Hart, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, all betting they could turn star power into storytelling power. But few have shined as bright as Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine. In 2021, it sold in a headline-grabbing $900 million deal.
Your company sold for almost $1 billion. How do you live up to the expectations? The public's expectations, investors' expectations?
One of the main things that kept occurring to me when I was in the process of selling the company was not necessarily how it made me feel validated, but I thought it was really important that a company that was about female storytelling mattered. The value of it mattered, because it's such a reflection in this world about, do we care and invest in women's stories? And I'm so proud of everything we've created. My team is impeccable. They work so hard, but they also wake up working on this mission that they truly believe. And that's like all I could have ever hoped for. It's just to create a company that makes me proud and makes me think the women who came before me would be very proud of.
If the near billion-dollar sale marked a high point, 4 years later, the industry looks very different. Budgets tightened, green lights slowed, and Hollywood is asking harder questions about what wins and why. To see how Hello Sunshine is translating its current vision into strategy, I headed to their LA headquarters to meet the women at the heart of its leadership team.
It's hard not to say hello, sunshine, when I walk through the door. If the Octavia Spencer always says, hello, sunshine.
As Hollywood shifts, Hello Sunshine has seen changes of its own. This year, longtime CEO Sarah Hardin stepped down. Maureen Polo, who previously led the company's book club, podcasts, and live events, stepped up to the job.
So first of all, congrats on the new job. What's first on your to-do list?
What's first on our to-do list is to really work closely with the other executives in my leadership team and really align everybody internally on what's happening in the industry around us right now and in the broader marketplace that we're all playing in.
Working alongside Maureen is Lauren Neustaedter, who leads the film and television division, steering Hello Sunshine's creative output across Hollywood's shifting landscape.
How would you describe Hello Sunshine's place in Hollywood right now?
I think we're in a really exciting, comfortable, confident place in Hollywood right now. I think we know what we do, and we're so proud to do it. Everything we do centers on strong female characters, and in unconventional ways, we showcase them as the heroes of their own stories.
There's so many different parts of the Hello Sunshine pie. Is the goal here to just make a good TV show and a good movie, or is the goal to turn this into a bigger business?
Well, I think the goal is absolutely to turn it into a bigger business, and that's why we have so many unique opportunities. I mean, look, it really started with book club. Even before Hello Sunshine existed, it was all about Reese loving these books and celebrating these books and engaging with the audience. And then when I came into work on film and television, it was about how do we actually build a bridge between some of the book picks and film and television so that we were bringing them to life for our audience and continuing the journey of loving a book.
In theory, it all connects. The book club drives development, which becomes shows, podcasts, and live events that loop the audience back in. Even lifestyle brands like The Home Edit fit into that ecosystem, extending the Hello Sunshine world into people's homes. For a wider lens on Hello Sunshine's strategy and what it reveals about Hollywood today, I turn to Lucas Shaw, a longtime reporter on Hollywood's power players.
When Hello Sunshine sold for $1 billion, was that like a mic drop moment?
Yeah. I mean, that was at the apex of this sort of streaming optimism. And you saw a bunch of celebrity production companies and a bunch of production companies in general raising money, selling. And I think the number just caught everyone off guard. But it probably was also a sign that this bubble was finally going to start letting some air out.
Would this still happen now?
Not at that price. I mean, you don't see a lot of production companies being bought and sold, and certainly not at those valuations. You know, there was so much excitement and enthusiasm during the streaming boom. And then starting around early to mid 2022, that all stops. And every company starts laying people off, they start cutting their budgets, and it has never really bounced back since then.
What about if you're Reese Witherspoon?
Reese Witherspoon, the actress, I'm not worried about her at all. Reese Witherspoon, the producer, also in pretty good shape. I mean, I think the biggest talent has an advantage on everyone because they are seen as a brand and bankable in some way that people still want to work with them. Reese Witherspoon, the founder of Hello Sunshine, that's where the picture gets a little more complicated.
There's a sense that Hollywood still hasn't recovered from the downturn. Has the content bubble popped? And how is that changing the strategy?
I think definitely there's a shift. As in any market, things are contracting for sure. But I think it's going to get back to a business that's really based on great storytelling. That's kind of a great opportunity to refine our ideas. There was so much going on before that was just being bought and made and bought and made, and it was about time that we needed to sort of get to the real premium content again.
So how is Hello Sunshine really doing?
Well, as a production company, it's doing okay. You know, I think they have a better chance of selling projects than many of their peers because they have a track record, because they have Reese, because they have professional management, but they haven't produced like a slew of hits. For it to be as valuable as it wants to be and to grow into something that's more than a production company, it has to have these other businesses. I mean, it can't just be making film and television because that's not a great business right now.
Is Hello Sunshine profitable?
We are a profitable business. And, you know, I think that at the end of the day, our conversation keeps going back to the questioning around, you know, Hello Sunshine as a healthy business. And I get frustrated by that sometimes because it feels like we are constantly under, you know, a microscope. I think the entertainment industry has gone through tough times in the last couple of years. And I think that those that thrive and those that scale are those that have not had to pivot their mission and at the core of what they do. And at our core, we are a company that centers female stories. And because we've never had to pivot away from what we are, we have this really incredible foundation that allows us to continue scaling, you know, on top of it. There's not many companies in the last couple of years who have added new businesses.
It's not about telling people, come to us. We have to be able to go to them. And if that means podcasts, great. If that means television shows are more popular than movies at a certain time, we can sort of drive the ship towards that. So I feel lucky that we're nimble.
Would you say it's all fully clicked? And if not, what's it going to take to get there?
I love the question. Do you think it's fully clicked? I think in 2025, going into 2026, I feel like nobody can actually say everything is clicked, right? I think we have so much that is really clicking in such a powerful, meaningful way. We've launched a new Gen Z platform for the next generation of girls called Sunny.
Sunny is for the girls, by the girls.
Do you guys feel empowered?
And when you look at what Lauren Newstetter's business is doing in TV and film, we're really looking for connection points for that next generation of consumers too.
That through line of connection shows up everywhere and drives what the team is planning next.
So let's talk about the upcoming slate.
Well, there's a lot to be excited about. I mean, first and foremost, Elle, which is our show that is in the world of Legally Blonde. Reese is really incredibly prescient and also very sensitive. I think she thinks a lot about the next generation. So I think she was seeing what was going on with young women today and the messages that were being sent to young women. And she called me one day and she said, I think we need to see Elle Woods in high school. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is very exciting.
Wait, she's coming. Okay. Hi. We just wanted to tell you that you don't have to audition anymore because you got the part. You're Elwood's. Really? You're Elwood's, yeah.
It's part of, conversation still 20 years later.
I hope you're going to teach her the bend and snap because it needs to be perfect.
I mean, of course.
So you bend and snap.
Also on the slate, a new chapter with Legally Blonde 3, an adaptation of book club pick The Nightingale, and a big swing with Polly Pocket, after Barbie proved a toy can capture the zeitgeist.
Hollywood does do a lot of new takes on old stories. Why do that? Why not just create new stories?
I will be honest and say, I think when you're leaning on IP, it will always feel a little bit safer because you know that there's an audience that's engaging with it.
Bringing you up to them in the news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Sherian in Seoul, and this is Bloomberg.
Astonishing day for US technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
The Middle East and Africa regions are home to some of the biggest deals and fastest growth in the world. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. I'm Jumana Bersetchi. Join me on Bloomberg Horizon's Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insights shaping the decisions of traders across this exciting region.
You had heightened levels of volatility.
There's still room to maneuver.
We do see opportunities.
It allows you to increase significantly your net income.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets?
We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Lizzie Burden in Florence, Italy, and this is Bloomberg. But even with a strong slate ahead, Hello Sunshine faces the same headwinds as the rest of Hollywood, with future generations shifting to YouTube and social video, and new technologies like AI starting to reshape how stories are made and consumed.
It's the most powerful imagination engine ever built.
How is big tech changing Hollywood, for better and for worse?
Hello Sunshine is spending a lot of our time thinking about big tech. We're thinking about AI. We're leveraging AI in some really thoughtful ways. But I think what's really important to think about from a Hello Sunshine perspective is that people and human experiences are core to everything we do at this company. Our mission is to center female stories. You cannot use technology to center their stories, to tell their stories. But what you can use technology for is to optimize the way in which we build those stories.
I mean, OpenAI is really testing the limits with Sora. Huge controversy around this. I mean, someone like Reese Witherspoon, who has contributed decades to the film and television industry, should they just be able to use?
No, they should never be able to do that. That should never happen. It should never happen. And again, it goes back to, we think about AI as enhancements and optimizers and not as the center of the story. They're never going to replace humans. I actually also believe that the younger generation, they care about human connection. They care about people. They want to know who the humans are behind the work.
The world is so different today than when you were playing Elle Woods. It's dominated by algorithms and AI and social media. How do you imagine your career might be different if you were just starting out now?
Oh my gosh, Emily, I don't think my career would be possible. It's a different world. I see young people and I have so much compassion for young performers and actors because they have to be the producer, the director, they have to shoot their own videos, they have to market themselves. That's not something that I understood when I was 20 years old. It was something, there was an entire apparatus to market materials. So it's a different, challenging time. That said, the incredibly talented people will always rise, right? Even in a glut of information, real talent survives and thrives.
What does success look like right now? Is it viewership? Is it awards? Is it making money? Is it critical acclaim?
For me, success looks like pride in the end product, making something that we feel really proud of, that our audiences love. I think critics will always have their own opinions, but I'm more interested in what audiences think. Are they engaging with the material? Are they coming back? If it's the morning show, are they dying to watch the next episode? And if the answer is yes, that is success.
Behind the pink neon and the rainbow-colored bookshelves is a company trying to rewire how a studio connects with fans every day across screens, shelves, and real-world stages.
What do you think is next?
I think we're seeing women getting the economic empowerment, and also now we have this empirical data that women's stories matter. Female artistry matters. The market is responding, right? Because women consume media. They're on these platforms, really liking and proselytizing on social media about the things they love. They're marketing these products. And I think it's really nice to see the acknowledgement by different industries that acknowledging women as consumers is actually good business.
You found a way to embrace femininity, but also power and agency. How do you imagine that journey being different for girls today? Do you have any advice for our daughters?
I think we have to trust our daughters. They are listening. I think we have to lead by example and do the very best we can to walk the walk. I know I try really hard with my company to show a whole dynamic spectrum of the female experience. Because if we normalize that there are all kinds of different women making different life choices, whether you want kids, you don't want kids, you want to be a career woman, you don't want to be a career woman, you struggle to make it, wait, you worry, you question about your origins, right? When we see more stories, we become more compassionate about each other as humans.
I have 3 sons and a daughter, and so it's just crazy seeing how life is different for them.
How old's your daughter?
She's 5.
I think it'll shift. I really do. I think it'll shift back to, I see young people too kind of reverting back to this idea of stripping off all that artifice. I think it's kind of punk. They have a great partner, Harlan Coben, who's just one of the greatest thriller writers and a lovely human.
Is this a side of you we didn't know existed?
Maybe. I contain multitudes.
When I visited Fernandez at IMAX's headquarters outside Toronto, we went to the facility where IMAX designs and maintains its cameras. The latest next-gen equipment was out with directors on filmed for IMAX sets, but there was still plenty of cool gear on view.
As the head of the finance department, do you look at all the things in this room and think, this costs that amount of money, this costs that amount of money?
Thankfully, no, I don't. When I think about cameras in general and what we, when we first, I'll give you a really prime example, the film cameras. When you thought about it, okay, are we building 2? Are we building 4? Are you building 8, right? And that's where I start to think about, well, what makes the most sense from a return perspective? Because yes, Nolan wants the cameras, but how many other filmmakers out there use the film cameras? The lens that I look at it through is essentially, how many do we build and in what way? Because the one thing is we are going to invest to build it right and to build it for longevity. But do you need 10 of them? No. Building 4, that was the right number. And do we potentially want to build a couple more? Maybe a couple more, but I don't think we need 10 because they won't always be in use all the time.
I imagine that at different points you need to tell people no. What's that process like for you?
Oh yeah, it's a key role in the CFO position. It is a word that most people are used to, and yet they still think you're not going to say it.
Have you ever thought about, or would you make a movie for a streaming service? Would you make a Netflix movie?
Man, that's a great question.
I mean, I'm waiting for one where I ask and you go, that was a shitty question.
Yeah. I mean, you good at your job, bro. Like, this is actually the first time anybody's ever asked me that. I'm not here to say what I would and wouldn't do in the future. But the theatrical experience is one that means a great deal to me. It means a great deal to us. I feel a certain responsibility. Like if Fruitville had happened a calendar year later, it probably would have come out on streaming. You know, I've been fortunate enough that everything that I've written and directed has been a theatrical release. So I feel a duty to try to protect that. You know, but that's where I'm at today.
Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Amin, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geoeconomic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Vonnie Quinn in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and this is Bloomberg.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Lizzie Burden in London, and these are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia, we'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart Europe's trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
If you were to pick one thing to magically erase from existence, that would bring all of modern life to a screeching halt, your best option would probably be magnets.
You are surrounded by magnets. Magnets are there in hard drives. I should do the list. The list is amazing. I knew they exist. When I put it in a list, I was like, whoa.
Take apart your cell phone, and you'll find a multitude of magnets inside. In the speaker and microphone, in the vibrating motor, stabilizing the camera lens. There are even tiny magnets on the circuit board. It's no exaggeration to say, no magnets, no modern world. And they're about to become even more important. As the world tries to become less dependent on fossil fuels, magnets and the multi-billion-dollar industry behind them are the key to many clean energy technologies, including some crazy futuristic ones.
This is the fundamental building block of our fusion technology.
But there's a big problem with our VIMs, very important magnets, that could derail the whole project of slowing climate change.
The supply chain of those is a challenge. About 90% of that material is processed in China. And so the concern is that if there's not enough magnets to go around, there'll be a restriction in supply.
Which country control the magnetism, control the world?
So inventors around the globe are creating new kinds of magnets that could save our planet and our face-melting riffs. That'll make sense later.
Does it ever get old playing with magnets?
Oh my goodness, look at this. No. Magnets are fascinating, right? Every single moment, they can surprise you. It feels like it has its own character. It has its own free will at times. We want to crush it, we want to scream at it, and then we love it again. Yeah.
Caroline Mulder is a magnet scientist. She spends her time trying to make better, stronger magnets.
This is our daily life, right? Trying to get this material have the most amazing magnetic properties that we can harvest. Moment of truth. Voila! Magnets. It's a wealth of intrigue for a scientist or an engineer, and even more interesting if you can make a product that can actually change the world for the better with it.
The kind of magnets Caroline makes are called permanent magnets. That is, metals that are magnetic on their own, as opposed to electromagnets, which only become magnetic when electric current flows around them. Permanent magnets are a big business. In 2023, about $38 billion worth of these metals were produced globally. And they're particularly important for clean energy technologies like electric vehicles and wind turbines. Without magnets, these things simply wouldn't work. Why? Well, let's look at an electric vehicle motor. When you turn on the motor, electricity flows into this metallic shaft, creating a magnetic field. That doesn't do much on its own, but look what happens when we add these permanent magnets. Their magnetic fields push against the central magnetic field. That makes the shaft rotate, and that makes the car go. Thanks, magnets. What about a wind turbine? Well, it's just the opposite process. The movement of the blades causes a magnet to spin around a central wire, which creates an electric current in the wire and generates electricity. It's like the motor in reverse. One turns electricity into motion, the other, motion into electricity. So, our magnetic friends spin around happily, making and using clean energy, and everything's great, right? Well, here's the problem.
Most permanent magnets today used in wind turbines or electric car motors come from using rare earth metals, typically neodymium.
Rare earths are metals that are only found in the Earth's crust in trace amounts, a few parts per million. And 92% of the world's rare earth magnets come from one place, China.
So it's not like rare earth metals, or neodymium specifically, is only found in China. It's that China has built over years, through government investment and private investment, a whole supply chain all the way from mining to the final product in the cheapest way possible. And that's made it really difficult for any other country to get into the neodymium game.
To see why China made that investment, look no further than the streets of Shanghai. More than half the vehicles sold here in 2024 had electric motors, which need those rare earth magnets to run.
Here in Shanghai, you see all these cars with green license plates, which means that they're EVs. I mean, basically, Chinese EVs are everywhere, and not just in the big cities. The Chinese EV industry is now the biggest in the world. I mean, how was China able to sort of become this incredible EV market? A lot of that has to do with the government. Chinese EV makers can depend on China for the supply chain, rare earths as well as rare earth magnets. Concentrated supply chains allow a lot of EV makers to obtain stable supply and manage their costs. But on the flip side, though, China's dominance of all these materials has given China pricing power, and other countries are vulnerable to policy swings in Beijing.
A small incident in 2010 exposed just how dependent the rest of the world is on Chinese rare earth metal supply. There was a Chinese vessel that was captured by the Japanese Coast Guard because they thought that it had entered Japanese water illegally, and Japan wouldn't release those fishermen. So China threatened Japan, according to some reports, that it will cut off the supply of rare earth metals to the Japanese electronics industry. And that caused a firestorm in the markets. Suddenly, rare earth metal prices skyrocketed, and that created this perception that countries needed to not just think about energy security, but they also needed to think about material security.
In Europe, efforts are underway to find local sources of rare earths. This site in Norway is being explored as a possible source of neodymium and other elements.
We are having the biggest deposit of rare earths in Europe. It's so important because there is absolutely no mining of rare earths in Europe today. And we are totally dependent on the supply from China. The demand is growing. We all need these materials for the future.
But establishing a whole new supply chain is an uphill battle.
This is the entrance to where we are finding the rare earth elements. It's difficult to open a new mine. It's permitting, we have neighbors, and it's very expensive. The first phase will be approximately €1 billion.
This mine won't start producing at scale for more than a decade, and the pace of development of new rare earth mines around the world has been slow.
Of course, it's a big challenge to compete against China, so we have a long way to go.
So new mines could be part of the answer, eventually. But what if this geopolitical problem had a more science-y solution?
Get your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield around the world right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romain Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
My name is Jianping Wan. I'm professor at the University of Minnesota. Magnetism is magic, still is magic to me, same as when I was a college student.
Originally from China, Jianping has been working on a new kind of magnet. And he's been at it for a very long time.
This material I work on for 20 years, and it's called the iron nitride magnet.
Iron and nitrogen, two of the most abundant elements, no rare earths required. A magnet like that could solve the rare earth supply chain problem and be a billion-dollar business.
Nitrogen atom.
But it's not as easy as it sounds. Finding a stable molecular structure for iron nitride is a notoriously tricky problem.
You know, it's a very hard materials to make, and that scares away a lot of people. So that's why I step in. I feel I can solve these problems.
He and his students built these specialized machines from scratch and got to work. By 2013, they were getting good, but not great results.
Performance of this material is still not good enough. I think if you ask anyone to invest to see this material can be replaced rare earth permanent magnet, no one will say yes.
But Jianping was wrong. Investors had magnet fever. He started a company, Niron Magnetics, that secured more than $100 million in funding. But the journey from lab to product was just getting started.
The genesis of Niron was indeed Professor Jianping's work at the University of Minnesota. What we had to figure out then is, well, how are we going to make this and scale the product? Iron nitride is a little bit tricky. It's a real challenge to make and scale a material and do it cost effectively. And so the last 10 years have really been focused around developing a process that is scalable.
We settled on this nanoparticle approach. And how we do that is we start with making iron oxide nanoparticles, basically highly engineered rust.
In this stage, the rust is not terribly magnetic. We have to process it further to take it from the iron oxide phase into the iron nitride. You can see the material becomes much more magnetic. In order to turn it into a magnet, we have to take a further step and take the powder and make it very alignable. And so you can see that the particles form these chains or needles, if you will. This allows us to get the right structure when we compact this material into a finished magnet. Oh, there's a nice one. It's always fun to play with magnets, right?
After years of perfecting this process, Niron says it's about ready to ship. Its first target market is audio, yet another industry with magnets at its core.
In speakers, it's the magnet behind the cone that drives the actual cone to go up and down and vibrate. We recently made an electric guitar. We used that at our ribbon cutting ceremony. What picks up the sound of the vibration of the strings are guitar pickups, and they're made from magnets.
Told you it would make sense later. But beyond cool guitar dads, Niron hopes its magnets can have an impact on all kinds of clean energy technologies. It's raised more than $30 million from car makers like GM and Stellantis, which are interested in using iron nitride for their growing EV lines, something Niron says will be possible in 3 to 5 years. And the company claims that with further development, its magnets could become the strongest permanent magnets ever. But iron nitride does have one major drawback. It tends to lose its magnetism in the presence of other magnets.
The area that's different to, I would say, rare earth materials today is it has more moderate, what we call coercivity, which is this resistance to demagnetization. In speakers, that doesn't really matter because the magnet is static. But in motors, it's spinning, and so it experiences other magnetic fields in the motor.
so many problems. Even now, Nayang still give me the challenge, how can we improve performance? Right now, the performance still not good enough for all the application. I believe, we need to invest more on the fundamental research.
If Niron gets past these hurdles, its magnets could become essential to the clean energy technologies of the present. But what about the future? Something more sci-fi. Not $1 billion business, but $1 trillion business. Well, there's a magnet for that too.
What we're trying to do is develop fusion technology that we could build around the world as power plants. These types of machines that use very large magnets to basically hold a star. And we're really leveraging new types of magnets to make them smaller, faster, and more powerful.
Founded in 2018, Commonwealth Fusion Systems is the brainchild of some physics nerds with a dream: to finally take fusion from a science experiment to real-world power source. And they think their unique magnets are the key to making this happen.
The magnets that we're building are the strongest in the world for their size. Strong enough to actually lift an aircraft carrier if we wanted to try.
I just wondered if any of you had a perspective of the reason to, put some of that capital into women's sports.
It's going to create you the fastest return. You will have so much success. If you look at the growth metrics of women's football, selfishly, in this country at the moment, it's phenomenal. We are the fastest growing sport on the planet. Our participation is up in this country. The interest that is around women's football is at a real, to your point, we're at a real moment in time to be able to capitalize on it. And if I was an investor looking to come into football in this country at the moment, I'd certainly be considering women's, because I don't have to invest an astronomical amount to become the best in the world, to really be put on the global stage, to be winning Champions League. Whereas if I wanted to do that in men's football in Europe, that's going to cost me a lot of money.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day. Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
So what exactly do magnets have to do with fusion? Buckle up. It's about to get cosmic.
Nuclear fusion, the same reaction that gives the sun its energy.
A nuclear fusion reactor is trying to replicate what the sun does, but on Earth. And that is no small feat. The sun is essentially taking hydrogen and compressing it to make helium. In the process, it produces a lot of energy. But the sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth. I think that's right.
Close enough.
And so its gravitational force is enormous, and it's able to use that gravitational force to compress all that hydrogen into helium.
On Earth, we don't have all that gravity to work with. Luckily, we can use heat instead.
And that's what a tokamak reactor does. It's essentially a bagel-shaped reactor made up of magnets on the outside that hold together hydrogen in the form of plasma that is superheated to 100 million degrees Celsius.
And because plasma has an electric charge, it reacts to magnetic fields, so the magnets can contain it.
The world over the last 50 years has built about 150 tokamaks. We actually understand the physics really well of how these specific devices work, but the engineering of the magnets is really hard. At MIT, we were running a tokamak that used copper, so magnets made out of copper, that were some of the strongest magnets in the world. And we were getting really good results. But we knew that magnet technology in that machine of copper wouldn't make a power plant.
that you would spend all your energy just running the magnet.
With a copper electromagnet, some energy is always lost to heat because of electrical resistance. You need to pump more electricity through the magnets than the fusion power can create, meaning you end up in the red. So what do? Well, here we need to introduce you to a new kind of magnet, a fabulous, freaky, I freaking love science kind of magnet, the superconductor.
My name is Daniel Davis. I'm a research faculty here at the National High Magnetic Field Lab, and I work on making superconducting magnets.
Superconductors have all kinds of strange properties. Under the right conditions, their magnetic field can actually make them levitate.
We have to cool it down by placing it in liquid nitrogen. It will try to expel the magnetic field around it, and that will lock it in place at a certain height above the superconducting track.
That, in scientific terms, is pretty sweet. But the property that makes them so useful for fusion is right there in the name, superconductor.
It's a material that has zero electrical resistance, so that means it can carry current without generating any heat.
Unlike copper magnets, which lose energy to heat, superconductors don't, which gets your energy investment closer to turning a profit. But there's another problem.
Most of the superconductors that exist are low-temperature superconductors. And when physicists say low, they mean really low.
Like the temperature of outer space.
Like close to absolute zero.
We're talking low.
Like low. Really low.
And it turns out, magnets don't like to be that cold. The extreme temperature limits the strength of their magnetic field. To compensate, you have to make them bigger, way bigger.
It takes a lot of work to build something big. It gets very expensive. Like the amount of money you need to spend on something to get just the first one can get very, very expensive.
That's exactly what's happening with ITER, a giant fusion reactor currently under construction in France that uses superconducting magnets. Look at this thing, it's huge, and as a result, is projected to cost as much as $65 billion. So, to make fusion smaller, cheaper, and more practical, Commonwealth's founders needed a whole new kind of magnet.
The question was would that material ever happen? And it wasn't until the early 2000s that we could really see that material was going to happen. That there would be a new type of superconductor. And it's not a wire, it's a weird thing, it's a film. And it won the Nobel Prize months after it was discovered.
So this is a material called HTS, or high temperature superconductor. It is literally, it comes out in a tape. It's probably kind of hard to see on the camera. It's very thin. It's actually mostly copper and steel, but there's a very, very, very thin layer inside of this that is high temperature superconducting material.
High temperature, in this case, is still wildly cold, but not quite outer space cold. And that was the breakthrough that Commonwealth needed. Magnets made with this material can create a stronger magnetic field, so they don't have to be so massive.
You can shrink the size of the device by a factor of 10. Basically allows us to make things smaller, which makes things cheaper and makes things faster, to get fusion to a spot where we can make energy from it.
So we're standing at the front of our magnet production line. So this is our very first station in the process where we make our pancakes. And a pancake is a layer of one of the magnets. We insert our superconducting tape into the spiral shape around the pancake. This is actually one of many stacks that we have in the factory of completed pancakes that we're now getting ready to make into full magnets.
Is it satisfying to be like, yes, we got a full stack?
Oh yeah, when we first moved into the factory, it took us about 20 days to complete a pancake. Now we're actually producing one a day.
Once completed, the magnets get stuck into this cooling chamber for testing. Liquid nitrogen and helium are pumped in to get the magnets cold. Then a super strong electric current is turned on.
So we're going to put in up to 35,000 amps of current into the magnet. And to put that in perspective, you charge your phone at night with 1 amp. So we could charge 35,000 cell phones all at once with this equipment.
Do you ever feel nervous walking under this lid?
No, we did a lot of structural analysis and no safety issue there.
Do you know how much that weighs?
A lot.
nuclear fusion has been worked on for decades, but it's only really in the last 2 decades that private industry has become serious about investing in nuclear fusion. In that period, about $7 or $8 billion of private investment has gone into about a dozen nuclear fusion startups around the world.
One of these investors is Breakthrough Energy Ventures, a VC firm started by Bill Gates to fund early-stage clean energy startups.
So Breakthrough is very bullish on nuclear fusion. We have invested in 7 nuclear fusion companies. The first one that we did, and the one that's received the most attention, is Commonwealth Fusion Systems. They raised, I think, $100 million in their first round and raised nearly $2 billion in their Series B. The idea that tokamaks are still experimental and risky and a long ways off, it's really not true. The old joke about fusion is that it's 20 years away and it always will be. That is absolutely not the case for magnetic confinement fusion at this point.
In this room right here, the tokamak will be built. So these big orange structures here are assembly tooling, so temporary stands. We'll put all the magnets up on them, and then we'll bring that machine together over that center white hole in the middle, and that's where the final kind of tokamak location will be.
If its demonstration tokamak works, Commonwealth plans to complete its first commercial fusion plant by the early 2030s. But it's important to throw some cold water on all of this, because fusion power is still basically an unproven technology.
The biggest challenge for nuclear fusion right now is to be able to show first that it can create net power, which is power plants that produce more power than they consume in creating nuclear fusion reactions. That's only been shown to work in a lab setting a few times now. It has never been shown in a commercial scale plant.
Even if Commonwealth's magnets tip the scales towards net power, building a full-scale fusion industry is likely to take decades.
So nuclear fusion evokes this idealism because the potential of free, clean energy is enormous. But it is also an idealism because the dream of actually having that is quite far still.
It's difficult to say if all of these very important magnets will help solve the environmental and geopolitical problems we're facing. But one thing's clear. Magnets are not static things. They're evolving, they're improving. We're manipulating the very molecular structure of these materials to make them stronger and better. That's a trajectory we've seen before with things like lithium-ion batteries and computer chips. It's a trajectory that has the potential to create huge businesses and a lot of change.
Magnetism, it's fascinating. It's been a long-time love of mine. It's invisible forces at play that can make such a big impact on the world.
The game here is understanding. These digital assets have the ability to change the payment landscape of the world. And we need to be ready. We, the regulators, the world needs to be ready for a new wave of technology.
Stablecoins are almost entirely used in the mechanisms of trading cryptocurrencies. What we saw is the opportunity for digital assets broadly, stablecoins in particular, to be used as a medium of exchange outside of the crypto world, what is today the fiat currency world. At some point, I think these digital asset wallets will be big enough and people will be comfortable enough using them. I think we'll have a flip from conventional payment mechanisms into stablecoin-based mechanisms.
Does that mean banks such as yourselves issuing stablecoins?
We could. We are issuing Hong Kong dollar stablecoins today. We're in a sandbox for tokenized bank deposits in Hong Kong. We're effectively issuing tokens related to trade finance in Singapore. So it's all on the table, but we're always going to tie it back to what our clients want and need. Because if we don't get that one right, the rest doesn't matter.
The market capitalization of both type of instruments, crypto and digital assets, are both very low. Stablecoins today have $20 billion of flows a day. It's less than 1% of the flows of the payment system in the world. But because they have the ability to be very helpful in use cases, particularly in retail to begin with, but then potentially on the wholesale side, I think we will see a lot more of them.
I'm Jason Kelly, and we're back with another season of The Deal, with athletes and entrepreneurs who are changing the game on and off the field. Jerry Jones.
Some good-looking trophies. 1 and 1 is 3 in sports, not 2. And it's because that 3 is imagination. That 3 is putting yourself in a way, having yourself hit the home run.
Erica Ayers-Badant.
I'm a high-energy board member. I'm very passionate. I have a lot of opinions.
Robin Arzón.
I want to light fires in people's lives, and that is still one of my core mandates for all of my businesses.
Justin Tuck.
I tell all of my friends that play in leagues now, make these relationships now while you're hot. Don't wait till you're the 12th year in and you're just hanging on.
Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it.
U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers Jobs Day like Bloomberg. Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
The new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jemana Bersachi in Beirut, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a simulation of Pong, the iconic 1970s arcade game where you use this paddle to stop this ball from getting past you. It's a pretty simple game for us humans to learn, and as of quite recently with advancements in AI, computers can learn it too. But today, Pong has a new kind of player, not a computer, nor a human. A cluster of living human brain cells on top of a silicon chip can play Pong. Yep, researchers in a lab taught a tiny clump of neurons to, in a sense, play this video game. But it's more than just a game. Some believe merging biology with computing could upend our approach to artificial intelligence. AI is a massive, often volatile, global market, with people looking all over for a competitive edge. In 2025, private sector companies teamed up to invest more than $500 billion in AI infrastructure alone. But what if the building blocks of that infrastructure include living human brain cells, with the promises and challenges of our own biology? Sounds like sci-fi, right? Well, we're kind of on our way.
Science fiction talked about this.
I love thinking about the Hollywood stuff. Like, are we really computers? Are computers really human?
My life has been focused on how can you elicit intelligence from brain cells in a dish. I've got a pretty broad background. I did some work starting with cognitive psychology, neuropsychology, and then eventually moving into neuroscience.
Brett Kagan is the Chief Scientific Officer at Cortical Labs in Melbourne, Australia. They made a name for themselves when they got their neurons to play Pong in 2022. They called it Dish Brain.
Yeah, let's just set up and see how it goes. Maybe we'll all be in for a surprise.
Quick timeout. Before we go any further, it might be worth understanding why companies like Cortical Labs are blending living neurons with synthetic systems. Compared to traditional machine learning, brains need far less training data to understand real-life environments and new situations.
So what you're seeing here is we're investigating, can neurons actually distinguish between different handwritten digits? And we want to see, can the neurons behave in a way that says they recognize that all of the sixes look like sixes, all of the fours look like fours, and so on. Anything with biology can learn to navigate its environment incredibly quickly, incredibly efficiently. And we've had to learn to do that through evolution, otherwise we died.
The promise of far less data and energy consumption is the holy grail for AI advancement. Here's why. Supercomputers like this one can be 1,000,000 times more powerful than the fastest laptop. But both supercomputers and AI run on the same basic technology, silicon chips.
There's never been a focus like there is currently on the chip industry. People have realized that chips are the heart of everything, that this fundamental change to the economy that's being promised in the form of AI depends upon semiconductors, depends upon their rapid development, and depends upon an ever-increasing supply of them.
For over 50 years, we have been creating better chips by packing more and more transistors inside one integrated circuit. The transistors are on-off switches, the physical manifestation of ones and zeros. And we've gotten faster and faster by going smaller and smaller. Over the last 6 decades, we've been trying to double the amount of transistors on an integrated circuit every 2 years. This is the heralded Moore's Law, observed by this guy back in 1975. Today, a phone's processing chip contains billions of transistors, and those transistors are so small, they're just a few nanometers apart in places. But, as our good old Intel co-founder, Gordon Moore, observed, this steady march of progress also has an endpoint.
You're creating a chip, a three-dimensional circuit, by depositing layers of material on a disk of silicon. Some of those layers now are 1 atom thick. Guess what? When you get to 1 atom, you can't go any thinner.
So, we have a problem, and folks all over the world are looking for solutions to our processing limits. After all, our demand for more computing likely isn't slowing down.
It's not like suddenly companies and governments and organizations are going to say, you know what, we don't need more data. Everybody wants to collect more and more data, right? People liken it to the, modern gold rush.
I wonder whether DeepSeek has kind of changed. I mean, it feels like it's upended the race this week.
DeepSeek is such a fundamental change to the economics of what's going on.
DeepSeek's January 2025 effect on markets was a strong reminder of these economic incentives. Companies are racing to build more efficient AI models all around the world, at times also fueling existing political tensions.
The president said that he believes that this is a wake-up call to the American AI industry.
One long-standing breakthrough in AI comes from biology and our ability to replicate it back to neurons.
The state of data and computing right now is pretty exciting, right? There's a lot going on. A big part of that is trying to learn what we can from how neurons in the real brains and biological brains connect to each other and how they communicate. And then seeing if we can take what we've learned about the biology and then hardwire that into artificial systems, into computational systems. And that's where sort of these ideas of like artificial neural networks and deep learning came from. And the current status of these artificial neural networks and deep learning is pretty fantastic.
But building these AI models and allowing masses of people to use them is costing a lot of energy.
Already there are parts of the world where there literally isn't enough power available via the grid to support these giant data centers.
By 2034, data centers around the world are expected to consume roughly 1,580 terawatt hours yearly. That is about as much as is used by all of India.
To use the words of Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, there's $1 trillion of infrastructure out there that needs to be modernized. The old way of doing things just simply doesn't stack up to the needs of modern computing.
So neurons might help solve some problems, especially around energy. Our brains are much better and more efficient in similar tasks to AI. For example, a supercomputer must consume up to 40 megawatts of power to function. Our brains run on just 20 watts. That's the difference between a couple of LED light bulbs and thousands of homes. Our brains are also powerful, with about 86 billion neurons that form over 100 trillion connections to each other. And with cells, the distinction between hardware and software isn't quite as well distinct. They're dynamic and intertwined. The cell's actual structure can change and mutate too.
Because of the way that computer chips are organized, they have limited logic functions. They tend to want to do things one thing after another. That's what they're good at. That's what they were designed to do. Human brain doesn't work that way. The human brain is kind of a lattice structure of interconnections where information flows in sort of different ways and different points. So the limitations of bio is that we're just at the very beginning of it.
DishBrain was our first prototype. We were essentially trying to ask the question, can you interact with a bunch of brain cells in a dish and get them to do anything useful at all?
Brett and his team started by growing a layer of 800,000 neurons on top of a silicon chip. That's about the size of a small bumblebee's brain. And since neurons in our brain naturally communicate using electrical impulses, the researchers could both send and receive impulses between the neurons and a computer hooked up to a silicon chip. To translate the Pong game into something this clump of neurons could sense and control, the chip is divided into 3 sections. There's one larger sensory section, which sends electrical impulses to the neurons to represent aspects of the game, like where the ball is. There's also 2 motor sections. If neurons send impulses in this one, the paddle moves up. If neurons send impulses in the other, the paddle moves down. The chip acts as a communicator between the neurons and the game, but it still doesn't mean that these neurons would want to play the game.
Why would a bunch of cells in a dish actually change their activity in any particular way? There's no Pong-playing gene that exists in brain cells to make them want to play the game Pong.
So the researchers tried to give the neurons incentive. Every time the brain cells missed the ball with the paddle, the researchers stimulated them with chaotic and unpredictable bouts of electricity. On the other hand, when the neurons successfully hit the ball, they received predictable stimuli from the researchers. Within minutes, the neurons started hitting the Pong ball more consistently. Why did it work? One possible explanation is a theory called the free energy principle. It suggests that almost all things in nature, even as small as the dish brain, are constantly trying to perceive and understand their world and minimize surprise.
If you can't predict what's going on in the world, if you can't say, if I reach for a glass of water, I'll successfully pick the water up, it's very hard to survive.
DishBrain was a proof of concept for this larger idea of biocomputing, also called organic computing, biological hardware, and perhaps most vividly, wetware. DishBrain made a splash, so big in fact that another team of scientists tried the same experiment using hydrogel, a non-living, soft, flexible substance similar to Jell-O. The hydrogel also learned to play Pong. So the question became, what can neurons do that other substrates can't? How much computing abilities can they provide? And frankly, can they make any money now?
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance.
Why is it that NFTs have not recovered in the same way that, say, Bitcoin has?
Bloomberg is covering all things crypto.
It's a pretty spectacular story.
The people.
This is the future. This is the 21st century economy.
The transactions.
It snapped up nearly $1 billion of Bitcoin.
And the technology.
We need to build a digital Fort Knox.
That gives people financial freedom, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's extraordinary.
We ride the wave that is Bitcoin.
Bloomberg Crypto, Tuesdays only on Bloomberg.
Vevey. It's a small city, it's peaceful. It's quite nice to do fundamental research here.
Meet Fred Jordan. Fred's the CEO and founder of FinalSpark, a biotech company nestled in the quaint Swiss town of Vevey. FinalSpark is a deep tech startup with a team of just under 10 people. Deep tech startups don't focus on end-user services. Instead, they aim to solve complex problems by harnessing scientific discoveries. Like Cortical Labs, FinalSpark is also a biocomputing company.
We have a way to have neurons connect together to create a small ball that is called a brain organoid.
Final Spark relies on their own funds of just over $1.5 million. Cortical Labs, in comparison, raised around $10 million in 2023 from folks like In-Q-Tel and Horizon Ventures. Final Spark says they have not accepted outside investment. They've used their own money towards research and development and made 16 brain organoids available for a subscription fee on a cloud computing network called the Neuro Platform.
You can come and you will look at real-time information streamed 24/7 from our neurons here in Switzerland. This picture here shows a close-up version of what's inside the incubator. The important part for us is this activity. Each of these small graph here represents the voltage for 1 second of one electrode. Now people who are using the neural platform are able to also send some stimulation to some of these electrodes, to which sometimes they will answer.
Researchers from all over the world can log on to the Neuro platform to observe, study, try different things. Some in the field of robotics, others use the organoids as teaching tools in alternative computing university classes.
Initially, we built this only for us. And then one university came, and then 9, and then 34, and now we have 200 people who want to access remotely to our brain organoids. This is totally new. There is no background at all. So there are more questions than facts about this way of investing. So I think this is the biggest challenge. Investors are always cautious fundamentally about deep tech. And it's even not only deep tech, it's a new deep tech. If you talk about quantum computing, for instance, it's deep tech, but it's an old deep tech. In the future, we'll have to live in a world where there will be some parts in computing which are living and others which are just artificial.
It's all well and good for research purposes, but a future where biology and hardware become one isn't easy. Cells need to be fed, kept at comfortable 37 degrees Celsius, their waste cleaned. After a while, they die.
You have to look at the environmental physics. A computer chip now is drawing multiple hundreds of watts. That throws off so much heat that you have to have these cooling systems in place, and that's a tremendous problem for the computer industry. But imagine trying to bring in biological materials into that environment if you're going to make a hybrid type technology. It's just not possible. You literally are going to start cooking the biological material. Any number of engineering problems exist that will need to be solved if we are to bring in this medium.
All this is hard to scale. Investors who take this leap now aren't looking to turn a quick profit. This is Cortical Labs' first commercial product, the CL1 unit. It's a processor with human brain cells in it. CL1s come with either neurons on a chip, organoids, or a type of neural material Cortical Labs calls bioengineered intelligence. This box acts like a body for the cells, feeding them, disposing of their waste, filtrating and pumping fluid around to keep them alive. The company's success hinges on whether or not they sell their CL1 units. Each one goes for around $35,000, and they're expected to launch in March 2025.
Scaling is always a challenge, just logistically. It's one thing to build a prototype in the lab. It's another to have hundreds of them rolling off a production line and have them be reliable and stable.
I'm not the Pope. I can fail. Perhaps my imagination, my fantasy is not big enough, but I would not invest into these companies from my side.
This is Thomas Hartung. He focuses on toxicology, think poisons, in an effort to improve public health.
Thomas, how much time do you spend in here?
Honestly, I come here when I look for my wife or some of the other people in our team.
He spends a large amount of his time thinking about how we can use biocomputing and these brain organoids now.
Our group was not the first to produce brain organoids. We used to call them mini brains at the time, but we were the first to standardize this. And we were very proud that when we showed this at one of these big science journalist events, the AAAS, we got on the front page of the Financial Times. I'm a crazy professor. I can't do what I want. I'm trying to replace animal testing.
Animal studies aren't always great at predicting how toxins or poisons affect humans. And although human brain organoids today deliver pretty modest computing tricks, their promise in the field of biomedicine is already remarkable.
The potential for just basic neurobiology is enormous. It could be a very good strategy to accelerate drug development. It is a lengthy process to do an animal experiment, not only a costly one. The value of being 1 day earlier to the market for a pharmaceutical company is about $1 million.
The key issue right now for us in the diamond space is the declared divestment of Anglo from GBS. And as you know, Anglo holds 85% stake in GBS. And Botswana, the government of the Republic of Botswana holds 15. We are resolute now, and we've communicated a firm intention to increase our stake in GBS to a controlling stake. We have lined up a number of potential collaborators with us, if I may put it that way. We have targeted funders, we have parties, we have the Oman Sovereign Wealth Fund, we have others who are willing and ready.
Trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The opening trade brings you everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
Let's talk about the significant risk transfers to find space in their balance sheet.
Hedging some of that risk.
You could look at it the other way. Obviously, this stuff is risk-weighted.
I would much rather be long than be short.
We're in a kind of sweet spot.
Very, very strong alignment.
3 revolutions in one.
I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Anna Edwards.
And I'm Tom McKenzie.
This is your opening trade.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories.
And we're here, where the action starts in Sydney.
And in Tokyo, get ahead as the global trading day begins.
The Asia Trade, weekdays, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up to them in the news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Shevrian in Seoul, and this is Bloomberg.
We first started to work with brain organoids probably around 2015, 2016. The aim of the lab is to understand Parkinson's disease, and we were pretty unsatisfied with available animal models as well as more simple cell culture models. The connection between the biocomputing and the disease modeling is actually quite interesting, because one of the features or characteristics that we see in neurodegenerative diseases is dementia. So people start to forget things. The concept that we would like to explore is, if I can train a brain organoid to learn certain tasks, can it also forget these tasks? And would it forget these tasks quicker or in a different way if it's in a disease context? Like, would an Alzheimer brain organoid forget things quicker than a healthy control organoid?
There are no cures for neurodegenerative diseases, only symptom management. What if we could understand and get rid of the disease itself?
If we can really understand the human brain, then we can potentially treat Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, epilepsy, all kinds of brain-based disease that we really don't have good treatments for now.
Many pharma companies have started actually to move away from these kind of diseases because it was just not commercially viable. Now, with these new technologies coming up, I think there's kind of new hopes that we would really develop or be able to develop therapies for these diseases that burden our societies quite a lot.
Studies suggest that at some point in their lives, more than 1/3 of the entire human population will suffer from neurological conditions like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, or dementia. By 2050, some project there will be an overall 22% increase in brain disorders, in part fueled by population growth and aging.
The cost for Parkinson in the US alone for a bit more than $50 billion. This is direct and indirect costs, so really like the healthcare, but also what it does to the economy. At the moment, there is about 10 million Parkinson patients in the world. Yearly in the US, there is about 90,000 people being diagnosed with PD. And since worldwide populations are aging, the likelihood to suffer from PD is increasing.
The idea of using biological medium to either process or store information makes sense in a lot of ways, but there are those who are saying, actually, this is living tissue. Not only how can we actually do this, but should we be doing this?
I think the biggest elephant in the room is, would a brain organoid become self-aware?
I'm not worried at all at the moment with these tiny, tiny little balls of cells that they would suddenly develop something which I could consider consciousness. There's a lot of ethical issues in all biomedical research, and this starts if you're using stem cells, as we do. You have to imagine the donors of these cells are often still alive. Is your signature still valid because you couldn't imagine that somebody would produce a brain which is thinking? These are all interesting questions, yeah? And they really get hot if we assume at some point in the future these brain organoids could suffer. They could experience pain. They could suffer from what they learn. So imagine this, yeah? Is this still acceptable? If they are self-conscient, even in a very simple sense, can I stop feeding them? Can I kill them? How much complexity you need to really call something intelligent?
A lot of things start and take years in the lab before they become commercially viable. I think we'll get there one day. It's just too early.
One way to look at this is that it's taken the semiconductor industry more than 50 years to get to this point where they can supply the world of electronics. 50 years is quite a long time. They say they've been going at breakneck pace. The amount of money, the amount of effort, the amount of study, the amount of science that has gone into that will take a long time to replicate with another medium.
Whatever the future may bring, one thing is already clear, that brain cells will always deliver more than the sum of their parts. And that's neither boring nor binary.
Tariffs, I think, are probably the first time in my career I've had to deal with like a fundamental change in government policy in terms of how we think about how markets work.
The challenge, especially within my supply chain, is now how do you have enough productivity initiatives to offset the increased cost of all the product?
Can you just move your supply chain out of China and into the US, or out of Mexico and up to Canada? Is it that easy?
It's not that easy, but we do have flexibility. And we had been, prior to tariffs, prior to any of this, we had been on a journey to diversify our footprint out of China. So probably 2-ish years ago, roughly 60-65% of our toy and game volume was coming from China. Today, as we entered into 2025, that was around 50%. All we've done is really accelerate the path to get down to roughly, call it 30% by the time we enter into 2027. For us, I mean, if tariffs stay, if tariffs go, it's never good to have so much of your manufacturing base centered on one geography. We think the diversification is good, but it does take a bit of time to get vendors and suppliers up to speed. Quality is a big deal, especially when you're dealing with toys and kids. It's not an instantaneous thing, but it's not also a 5-year, have to build a new plant from scratch.
Have you ever thought about, or would you make a movie for a streaming service? Would you make a Netflix movie?
Man, that's a great question.
I mean, I'm waiting for one where I ask and you go, that was a shitty question.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you good at your job, bro. Like, this is actually the first time anybody's ever asked me that. You know, I'm not here to say what I would and wouldn't do in the future. You know, but the theatrical experience is one that means a great deal to me. It means a great deal to us. I feel a certain responsibility. Like if Fruitville had happened a calendar year later, it probably would have come out on streaming. You know, I've been fortunate enough that everything that I've written and directed has been a theatrical release. So I feel a duty to try to protect that. You know, but that's where I'm at today.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Lizzie Vernon in Florence, Italy, and this is Bloomberg.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this a new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacroix, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geoeconomic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Vonnie Quinn in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and this is Bloomberg.
The deepest hole ever dug on planet Earth is right here, in northwest Russia. It's called the Kola borehole. Scientists started drilling in 1970 to study the composition of the Earth's crust, and presumably to see how deep they could go. Eventually, they reached a depth of almost 12 kilometers. That's roughly a third of the way through the Earth's crust on land.
It took them over 20 years to drill, just because of the hard rock and that depth. As they were drilling, there was this rumors that they were hearing voices down there, almost like you know, the depths of hell. It's a little bit, it's crazy.
In the mid-90s, the project ran out of funding. The site was abandoned and the hole was sealed up. And the 12-kilometer record still stands. For now.
12 kilometers is not that far, right? Like, and just think about that. We've actually never directly measured anything deeper than that. It truly is kind of the final frontier.
Well, okay, it's not like we have no idea what's down there. Coal, oil, and natural gas covers 80% of global energy demand after all. But there's one resource under the Earth that's often overlooked and maybe undervalued.
Drill anywhere on the Earth, and if you go deep enough, you'll find hot rocks. And so what you can do is turn that heat into power, electricity. And that's really geothermal energy.
Geothermal is the underdog of the energy industry, generating just 0.3% of electricity worldwide. It's mostly considered impractical outside of a few specific spots around the globe. But that's starting to change.
Geothermal energy opens up a new economic paradigm. Heat suddenly becomes a service and not linked to a commoditized fuel.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are pouring into startups aiming to tap the energy under our feet.
Geothermal is just too compelling to ignore. I like to say it's the largest source of clean energy on Earth.
And today, companies are looking to go deeper than we've ever gone before, using new drilling technologies that do this to solid rock. But are their new technologies really up to the task? And can they avoid the earth-shaking consequences when drilling goes deeply wrong?
Don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the.
That fellow in the bucket hat is Jim Folds. With his crew of geology students, he's constantly on the hunt for new hotspots, collecting data that geothermal companies can use to expand their operations.
Like butter, baby.
They use methods like this heat probe to check subsurface temperatures to find the best spots to drill.
Geothermal energy, in a way, it's so simple. It's just the Earth's heat. It's always there. At least it will be there for another couple billion years. The core is much, much hotter than the surface of the Earth, and there's sort of large convection cells that help to bring that heat up closer to the surface from deeper levels. The Earth produces enough geothermal heat in a given year, I think something like 10 times the amount of energy that just the United States needs in a given year. There are many areas on Earth that have relatively high levels of geothermal potential.
Countries like New Zealand, Indonesia, Turkey, and China all have plentiful geothermal resources. But Iceland is considered the true geothermal champ. The country transformed its volcanic heat into an economic windfall.
Iceland was a developing country in the early 20th century until it tapped geothermal energy. And once it did, it was able to use that energy and convert it into industrial output and become a richer country. It is today one of the most developed countries in the world with a very high per capita income. But there are many countries around the world that have access to geothermal power but have yet to really tap it. For places like Kenya, they're at an early stage of development. But if they can access more geothermal power, they can have cheap, clean electricity that can be converted into economic output pretty quickly.
Sorry guys, it's a bit noisy because there are machines running, generator running, cooling system happening. So this point, steam is collected and sent to Sosian power plant. So from this point, you can see a green line supplied to all of the units in the power plant.
This plant is operated by Sosian Energy, a relatively new player that raised $91 million to build the 35-megawatt facility. It taps into a hotbed of geothermal potential known as the Rift Valley.
This portion of the African continental shelf is actually separating from the rest of the continental shelf. The area where we are today, we're at the bottom of that rift, and that is why it's called the Rift Valley. And because of this, the internal Earth heat that we're using, that heat is much more readily accessible because the distance that we have to travel to tap into this heat is much lower than other areas in the world.
That lucky geography means that almost half of Kenya's electricity is generated from geothermal heat.
This plant generates electricity through what I call elaborate plumbing. These massive green pipes is what is delivering the steam from 2 to 3 kilometers deep. It is directed into turbines, and those turbines convert the heat into electrical energy. That electricity is then transferred to the national grid. This country has a potential of up to 10 gigawatts of geothermal resource. And right now, we've barely tapped 1 gigawatt. So we have a massive headroom that we need to exploit as a country. We can more than meet our national demand through just tapping into the geothermal resource. Industrialization does not happen on thin air. It requires electricity. And electricity needs to come from sustainable sources. And geothermal can be very central to that African industrialization story because it is something that is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
And that always-on quality is very, very special in the world of clean energy.
Solar and wind are the two variable sources of renewable energy that have exploded with hundreds of billions of investment in recent years around the world, but they're at the whim of the weather. That means that when it's cloudy, solar panels don't generate optimally, and when air currents are still, Turbines for wind power are also not in operation, and geothermal, because it's available 24 hours, 7 days a week, provides that reliability that investors are looking for in a grid.
So on the surface, geothermal looks like an ideal energy source. Clean, dependable, good for another few billion years. But so far, it's only really worked in a few places. So why exactly is that? Well, it turns out that geothermal power needs 3 very specific conditions: heat, a reservoir of water, and a layer of porous rock. If you've got all 3, you're in business. No water? No big deal. Many geothermal plants simply pour their own fluid down into the hot rock. But that rock really has to be porous. If you can't get fluid flowing through the hot rock, you can't use the heat. Solid rock just won't work. So outside of the places where the rocks are hot and full of holes, geothermal is a non-starter. And that's why it only generates 0.3% of electricity worldwide, putting it in the other wedge, the least cool wedge in the whole chart. But a new class of startup is aiming to make the wedge a whole lot bigger.
Get your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield around the world right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
The Middle East and Africa regions are home to some of the biggest deals and fastest growth in the world. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. I'm Jumana Versace. Join me on Bloomberg Horizon's Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insights shaping the decisions of traders across this exciting region.
You had heightened levels of volatility.
There's still room to maneuver.
We do see opportunities.
It allows you to increase significantly your net income.
Every trading day, only on Bloomberg.
Fervo Energy is a next-generation geothermal developer. We've developed new technology that makes geothermal work in far more places.
To do that, Tim is borrowing technology from the oil and gas industry, where he used to work.
I didn't plan this, but the office building you can see right behind me was where I started my career, just through the window there at BHP's Houston offices, and started my career working as a drilling engineer in South Texas. So they just started getting into the shale boom. The light bulb went off for me that all the technological advancements that I was seeing in my day-to-day career in oil and gas were going to be just as transformative for geothermal drilling as they were for oil and gas drilling.
Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is a process of injecting highly pressurized liquid into underground rock, opening up gaps where none existed before, to then extract oil and gas. Combine fracking with geothermal instead, and you've got enhanced geothermal.
We create new fractures in the rock that essentially turns the subsurface into a giant heat exchanger, radiator, and we pump cold water down the injection wells, flow over to our production wells where they come back up to the surface, picking up the heat, and then we capture that heat at the surface and use it to generate electricity.
Now, we've gone from 3 conditions to just 1, hot rocks, and that could open things up a lot.
Historically, geothermal was limited to very specific geologies. So the only places that you would see a geothermal power plant today would be in this certain hotspot in Northern California or some plants across Northern Nevada. What this map is showing is that thanks to the developments of enhanced geothermal system technology, much more of the country is developable. So even at today's cost structure, you can think about things that are in the reddish and orangish color and some of the yellow color as already being cost effective. So we're envisioning, more than 100-fold increase in the amount of geothermal that you can get, and you can replicate this for really any country.
Fervo debuted its technology with a small plant in Nevada in 2023. They're now building a full-scale power plant in the mountains of Utah.
All 400 megawatts will be online in 2028, and a 400-megawatt project is quite large. When we bring this plant online, it'll be responsible for roughly 10% of all the power generated in the state of Utah.
Producing that much clean electricity is a big opportunity, and others are taking notice. An hour south of San Antonio, Texas, in a region dense with fracked gas wells, another enhanced geothermal startup, Sage Geosystems, is building a test plant.
So, yeah, I spent 36 years in the oil and gas industry. It was all with Shell. I really wanted to be in the energy transition, and geothermal is that clean energy that best leverages my skill set.
One of the most exciting parts about geothermal energy is that it provides the opening for a just transition for people who work in the fossil fuel industry. A lot of people who are currently engaged in geothermal energy come from oil drilling, and it requires the same skill set of geophysicists and roughnecks who are willing to do hard labor of drilling and have a knowledge of the Earth's crust and how to bore beneath it.
It was 50% HCl, correct? I don't know. You're supposed to just say, yeah, of course it was.
Sure, definitely.
At 537 barrels.
My daughter definitely had an impact on me moving into geothermal. She worked for Sage before I worked for Sage. She likes to remind me of that.
I was like, yeah, you should come over because it's way funnier over here. You know, oil and gas is kind of boring and you know what you're doing, but over here we're starting a whole new company. We're starting a revolution.
Is it awkward working together at all?
Yes, yes. I think it is.
Sage started out in 2020 with an enhanced geothermal approach similar to Fervo's. But they soon realized they could put their fracked wells to a different purpose. The space opened up underground can also work as a kind of battery.
In a simple term, we drill a well just like any oil and gas well, and we target a hard, non-permeable rock that we fracture using the same oil field technology, and it works like a balloon. We pump water in, it kind of airs up, and when we want to produce electricity, we flow it back. The pressure from the earth brings it back through our lines, turns a Pelton turbine, which in turn rotates a generator and makes electricity.
Storing energy like this could open a new line of business for geothermal companies by pairing with solar and wind.
In California and Texas, actually solar is out producing demand in the middle of the day. So you can take that precious clean energy, use it to store water under pressure, and then again produce that water at a time of day when the demand is higher and the people really need the energy.
Sage and Fervo say they've raised money from a mix of venture capital, government grants, and partners like drilling companies that stand to benefit from the growth of geothermal. All of this support has raised high hopes for the industry. The International Energy Agency predicts that by 2050, total geothermal power capacity could grow from 15 gigawatts to more than 800 gigawatts, meeting up to 15% of global electricity demand.
We're in probably the most dramatic growth curve ever experienced in the industry. Everybody who's working in the industry feels that we're part of a new revolution.
But before any of that can happen, geothermal has to overcome some challenges. For one thing, just getting into the game costs a pretty penny.
One of the issues with geothermal energy is that it requires high upfront costs, upwards of $90 million for a single borehole, compared to $1 million or less for a single gas generator. What that means in effect is that people who are doing the drilling need to change the economics by finding either states or municipalities that are willing to enter into a long-term agreement. It's being able to project 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future and have a reliable return on your investment. And the problem right now is that investors don't have confidence about the stability of power prices that far in the future.
For Sage and Fervo, even getting their early projects off the ground has been a pricey proposition. And they'll need to keep attracting humongous piles of capital as they expand their operations over the coming years. And there's another problem that could pose an even bigger risk to the growth of the industry.
I just wondered if any of you had a perspective of the reason to, put some of that capital into women's sports.
It's going to create you the fastest return. You will have so much success. If you look at the growth metrics of women's football, selfishly, in this country at the moment, it's phenomenal. We are the fastest growing sport on the planet. Our participation is up in this country. The interest that is around women's football is at a real, to your point, we're at a real moment in time to be able to capitalize on it. And if I was an investor looking to come into football in this country at the moment, I'd certainly be considering women's, because I don't have to invest an astronomical amount to become the best in the world, to really be put on the global stage, to be winning Champions League, whereas if I wanted to do that in men's football in Europe, that's going to cost me a lot of money.
Good morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Lizzie Burden in London, and these are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia, we'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart Europe's trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything. From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
All sources of power have trade-offs, and the trade-off with geothermal is that sometimes, in the process of drilling, it can cause earthquakes. There was an incident in South Korea in 2017 when geothermal drilling led to an earthquake of the magnitude 5.5, which is one of the largest earthquakes that have hit South Korea.
한동대학교에서 안에 있는 그 한동 글로벌 학교의 고등학교 3학년으로 갑자기 막 땅이 흔들리고 초등학생들이 흔들려 보이는 거예요. 그러면서 막 어디선가 진짜 생전 처음 들어보는
Like Sage and Fervo, the Pohang project used fracking techniques. That, plus a drilling site that was too close to a fault line, led to disaster.
지각과 지각 간에 어떤 힘이 부딪히는 응력이 폭발하면서 땅 속에 지진이라 할 수 있는 그 어떤 산사태라 할 수 있는 지진이 발생하는 원리입니다. 포항은
이제 그냥 조금이라도 그 지진이 일어났을 때 그 비슷한 소리만 나도 갑자기 이제 안 움직이고 밖에 나오려고 하는 것 같아요. 저도 이제
자식을 놓고 또 안전하게 살 수 있는가 어떤 그런 어떤 혼란스러움이었습니다. 그리고 외부에 포항 지진은 이제 위험한 지진의 도시다. 저 같은 경우에는 직접 그것을 경험하기도 했습니다.
As bad as the Pohang earthquake was, events like it are extremely rare. As far as we know, Pohang is by far the worst geothermal-triggered quake to date. But even a handful of accidents can deeply damage the reputation of an energy source. And natural gas fracking is already controversial for instances of groundwater pollution and even earthquakes.
We actually have monitoring stations at this facility and at our test well in Starr County. So for all of our projects, we will be monitoring for induced seismicity or earthquakes.
We're quite pleased now that over the course of 40 years of field development, we've never had any issues related to seismicity. So it's something that we take quite seriously.
As this industry scales, it is one thing that it'll have to be very careful about, getting permission from all the people who will be around that geothermal power plant and what kind of risks they will be facing as a result of having this in their backyard.
Despite the risks, geothermal's potential to become a dominant clean energy source keeps attracting prospectors. In fact, some companies want to not only keep digging, but dig even deeper.
There's companies out there that are starting to use what we already have in oil and gas to unlock geothermal. I always nudge people and say, look, there's much more. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Carlos Araque, CEO of Quaise Energy, wants to drill as deep as necessary to tap geothermal heat literally anywhere on Earth.
Geothermal can truly repower the world, but we have to play the hotter and deeper game.
Enhanced geothermal only works down to around 3 or 4 kilometers. Going much deeper could open up far more drilling sites around the world and generate more power from hotter temperatures.
20 kilometers indeed opens up the whole world to geothermal. so twice as deep as an airplane flies high. If you can get to 20 kilometers, every part of the world has the geothermal potential of Iceland.
Of course, there's a reason no one's done this before.
At these depths that we're talking about, the type of rock that you encounter is what we call the basement rock. It's like these igneous rock that are like granite and basalt. So these are the type of really hard rock that for oil and gas with their conventional drill bit is very difficult to drill into it. So we're not trying to use conventional drill bits, we're actually trying to use microwave, or in this case millimeter wave, that causes the rock to vibrate, and it actually starts to then heat up to the point where it's melting and then ultimately vaporizing. So what we have here on display is a basalt paver that's 2 inches thick. We should be able to make about a 4-inch hole in about 90 seconds.
Using this terrifying beam of death, Quasar's engineers claim they might be able to drill down 10 kilometers in a few months. The Kola borehole, by contrast, took decades.
It's really, really hot.
But Quasar's approach is truly new and untested. While the company has been able to raise about $90 million of capital so far, some geologists are skeptical that geothermal power will ever be practical in the depths Quasar is aiming for.
Is it possible that it won't work? It's always the case. And also, it's also possible that things can get damaged in the field, just bad luck.
We're doing things that have never been done by anybody, ever. So there's always the possibility that we hit a hiccup, we hit a small brick wall, we fall flat on our faces.
It's for us to really tell the world that it does or does not work. I mean, it's really on us. So that's why I feel it's actually really interesting, a great job, because it's the unknown at this point.
It's too early to tell if these stabs into the unknown will really be transformative for the geothermal industry. But if the industry scales, it could be transformative for the business of energy.
Once you bore a hole from which geothermal heat is taken, you're not tied to the constant supply of gas or coal. That's dramatically different than our current economic model of generating heat.
And in the long run, it seems almost inevitable that we're going to harness geothermal on a bigger scale. We live on a literal ball of energy, and someone is all...
You don't think the court was hurt by the perception that it was a political decision?
The court's always hurt, it seems to me, if we look political. One of my concerns, my present-day concerns, is there's too much partisanship. It's true historically that most presidents have appointed justices to the Supreme Court who are members of their own party. The partisanship should not be an overriding factor. What you look at is temperament, learning, background, reputation, whether or not you have those qualities of independence and caution that make for a good judge.
Increasingly, you see dissenting opinions in the Supreme Court aren't quite as civil as maybe you might prefer. And is that of concern to you?
Yes, it's of great concern to me that our civil discourse, our civic discourse, is not civil enough. Aristotle said that a democracy depends on an open debate where you respect the dignity of those with whom you disagree. He said democracies only live if they are sustained over a period of time by a thoughtful, rational discourse, a discourse in which you respect the dignity of those with whom you disagree.
I'm Alex Rodriguez. And I'm Jason Kelly. And we're back with another season of The Deal.
With athletes and entrepreneurs who are changing the game on and off the field. Jerry Jones.
Some good-looking trophies.
1-1 is 3 in sports, not 2. And it's because that 3 is imagination. That 3 is putting yourself in a way, having yourself hit the home run.
Erica Ayers-Badon.
I'm a high-energy board member. I'm very passionate. I have a lot of opinions.
Robin Arzone.
I want to light fires in people's lives, and that is still one of my core mandates for all of my businesses.
Justin Tuck.
I tell all of my friends that play in leagues now, make these relationships now while you're hot. Don't wait till you're like your 12th year in and you're just hanging on.
Stay tuned. You won't want to miss it.
U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers Jobs Day like Bloomberg.
Know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romaine Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jemana Bersachi in Beirut, and this is Bloomberg.
Upheaval of a different sort altogether in the Philippines. A volcano erupted in
1991, a volcano in the Philippines called Mount Pinatubo erupted. The eruption was devastating, spewing ash and 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the air. But in its aftermath, scientists observed something else. For a little while, all that sulfur dioxide in the air partially blocked the sun and caused the entire planet's temperature to temporarily drop by 0.5 degrees Celsius. Now, an American startup wants to imitate that cooling effect to fight the effects of our warming planet.
I couldn't figure out why scientists hadn't done this.
The idea that we might engineer what might be called the good part of the volcano has taken off and increasingly has found capital willing to fund it.
It's a crazy and controversial idea that's recently been attracting billionaire philanthropists.
For these guys in Silicon Valley, it's really appealing because it's very like superhero, and it's reliant on this idea that we can use technology to like create a better world.
Other groups are looking for what they say are safer, more sustainable cooling methods, like modifying the ocean using whale poo. But testing and proving all these technologies is difficult.
It's gonna hit.
And expensive.
We've still got some testing and tweaking to do with the biopod.
And as temperatures rise, time is running out.
The science writer Eli Kintich, he had a very clever bumper sticker for this whole conversation, and that was geoengineering, a terrible idea whose time has come.
And even if the science does work, is geoengineering just an excuse for continuing our dirty emissions?
At a certain point, you do have to figure out how much risk you're willing to bear and what the penalties are for you if you choose wrongly.
Hold this.
Currently, we're inflating the balloon with sulfur dioxide, SO2.
Which is one of the substances emitted by volcanoes, and this serves as our sunscreen for Earth. It reflects a little bit of sunlight from the stratosphere for 2 years before falling back to Earth.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Launching. 3, 2, 1. Yes.
Nice.
This is Luke Eisman and Andrew Song of Make Sunsets. The serial entrepreneurs are using a fairly basic and decidedly unorthodox technique to cool the planet. It sits in a category of ideas known as geoengineering.
Geoengineering is the application of some technology or method globally in order to address the symptoms of climate change. There's solar radiation management, which is a fancy way of saying blocking sunlight from coming into the Earth.
The basic idea is this. A special aircraft, or balloon in this case, flies into the stratosphere, so way higher than a regular commercial jet. The aircraft releases sulfur dioxide. The balloon just pops from the low air pressure. The SO2 reflects a small portion of solar radiation back into space, which then cools the planet, in theory. And then the amount of SO2 released determines how much the planet is cooled. So it's similar to a volcano, but theoretically with less of a threat to human lives and property. We just don't know.
The other form is called carbon geoengineering that can draw carbon dioxide either directly out of the air or in some cases capture it.
CO2 is captured from the air or directly from sources like power plants. It's then turned into liquid by adding water and then injected deep underground where it reacts with rocks to form stable carbonate minerals. Kind of like sweeping it under the rug, except for thousands and thousands of years. But the process is wildly energy intensive, since it takes a lot of air to capture any significant amount of CO2. It also requires large upfront investments, with some of the world's first carbon capture plants costing millions of dollars.
With direct air capture, you can literally measure the carbon that you're pulling out the atmosphere. And that makes it really attractive to investors because you know exactly what you've removed. You can't necessarily say that for if you plant a tree.
That fact has made direct carbon capture the gold standard of geoengineering methods. But some scientists say this isn't a question of either or. We may soon need both.
The international goal set out in the 2015 Paris Agreement was to halt global warming at 1.5 degrees. So it's extremely unlikely we're going to make that.
I describe solar radiation management as a painkiller. It only really targets the symptom of climate change, the heat. It is the one thing that we know would turn the thermostat down on planet Earth.
Sounds like a huge business opportunity, except for a not-so-tiny, not-so-insignificant problem. Scientists don't understand the chemistry of sulfur in the upper atmosphere.
We don't know how much a dose cools the planet. We don't know if continued geoengineering will wreck weather patterns like monsoons or destroy opportunities for agriculture in different parts of the world who may not have had a say in whether we're going to do it or not.
There have been no large-scale experiments so far on solar radiation management. Scientists are confident that solar radiation management would cool the planet. But then, after that, the scientific community are pretty divided. In 2022, there was an open letter published calling for non-use agreement, and this has now been signed by 550-plus academics. But also in 2023, another open letter was published calling for essential research into this solar radiation management.
I politely disagree with scientists who think we need to have a 99.999% understanding of the exact amount of cooling, because we don't have that for the warming created by CO2. We can't let precision be the enemy of action.
And Make Sunsets is acting one balloon at a time for now. In California, we join them as they launch their sulfur-filled balloons.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Although they haven't quite worked out all of the kinks.
We are not buoyant enough. But let's see.
Oof. Come on. It's gonna hit.
And when you apply the Silicon Valley ethos of move fast and break things, sometimes things break.
Please stop filming.
Or get stuck on those important-looking wires.
Dude, I don't think it's gonna pop, man. It's pretty thick.
It's a BB gun. It'll definitely pop it.
But with the help of a metal pole and a ladder, the work continues.
There you go. Oh, God. Oh, yeah, baby. Nice job.
According to Make Sunset's website, they've already launched over 130 balloons. They say that that's the equivalent of planting more than 4 million trees, but there's currently no verification process to prove this equivalence.
This is the only technology that will materially cool the planet during our lifetime. To not pursue that as startups, as governments, as individuals is frankly irresponsible in my opinion.
That claim is shared by some climate activists and venture capitalists, including Tim Draper of Draper Associates and his son Adam of Boost VC, who have both backed Make Sunsets.
They kind of have the same attitude as the co-founders. What are we all waiting for? Like, this is a solution. We can do this now. Why aren't we doing it? I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And, you know, Tim and Adam have signed on with that, and that's sort of why they're funding him.
We had $500,000 lined up before we even had any customers. So that gave us the runway to even experiment with this.
So far, they say they've raised $1 million from Draper Associates, Pioneer Fund, and Boost VC. Other billionaires have been investing in the research of solar radiation management for years. Bill Gates, Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskowitz, and OpenAI's Sam Altman have all either directly contributed or voiced support for the technology.
I think just last year, $75 million has been announced in funding for more research into solar radiation management. But as a whole, the direct air capture market is much more established. So between 2018 and 2022, there was about $3 billion spent on upscaling and developing carbon removal as a whole, and about 46% of that went to direct air capture.
Most of the attention and most of the money is on sucking carbon out of the air, but that's a really expensive and complicated project, and it would take a lot of that being done to make a huge dent in our overall carbon budget. On the other hand, solar radiation management is a lot cheaper. So $1 billion in solar geoengineering and $1 billion in carbon sequestration is a completely different thing. So we're talking about this very expensive, very complicated thing, and this relatively very cheap and relatively simple thing, which would be blocking the sun.
Currently, if you want to remove a ton of CO2 from the atmosphere, it can cost anywhere from $500 to $700 per ton. We charge $1.
That sounds like a simple sales pitch, but the devil is in the details.
Say you're doing stratospheric aerosol injection. To have an impact on the climate as a whole, this would have to be done globally, 24/7, forever.
Basically, a fleet of planes would need to continually release sulfur to keep our temperatures down. And if we suddenly stop,
that could mean a huge rise in temperatures without enough time to adapt or mitigate the impacts.
This is called termination shock.
I don't think that this can be a commercial venture. Because of the risk of termination shock, that company would have to exist forever. They would need to be doing this around the clock in international airspace. And so you need all countries to be on board with this plan.
And the politics around geoengineering are tricky. When Make Sunsets released its balloons in Mexico, the country banned geoengineering experiments altogether.
A country, if it decides to deploy solar radiation management on its own, you know, it could impact the weather of its next door neighbors, and that could be seen as an act of war. These questions need to be answered on a kind of global consensus, and frankly, we haven't seen that level of international cooperation yet.
Whether startups like Make Sunsets can have an impact on our climate is questionable. But one thing's certain, they've kickstarted a debate about the need to employ more drastic measures in the battle against climate change. And with it, they may have opened the door for other startups in the geoengineering space to enter through.
I think it's more dangerous to do nothing, and I think that in general, people should take actions to try to solve problems that are important to them.
The only thing that's preventing us from scaling right now is demand, really. And that demand, I believe, will increase as the world heats up. That's a sad part of this entire thing. Mother Nature is actually our best marketing person. As the world heats up, as there's more catastrophic climate events, as there's more hurricanes, people will start to say, why is it getting so hot? Why isn't anyone doing anything about this?
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
Another geoengineering mission underway to reverse climate change is by Edwina Tanner and her team at Waitlist. Today, they're getting ready for a day of collecting data in the Coral Sea. Their aim is to suck up carbon from the atmosphere with the help of these guys.
Whales are the original climate engineers. They come up to the surface waters and they evacuate large fecal plumes of really rich nutrients.
These plumes of poo are quite important.
These nutrients are really important to feeding the bottom of the food chain and the marine environment.
The nutrients found in the plumes feed phytoplankton, kickstarting an increase known as phytoplankton flume. The phytoplankton naturally capture CO2 via photosynthesis and convert the CO2 into organic compounds. After the phytoplankton die, they sink to the deep ocean, carrying carbon with it. The whole process is considered a biological carbon pump and transfers about 10 gigatons of carbon from the atmosphere to the deep ocean each year. To simulate their own carbon pump, Waitlist invented a substance called aquafood, which is artificial whale poo. The aquafood would be tailored to local climates and released in multiple locations, thus exponentially increasing the amount of carbon removed from the atmosphere. This is a type of marine geoengineering or ocean fertilization. Once the aquafood has been perfected, the Waitlist team hopes to spread it across existing shipping routes.
We're also looking at just adapting ships that are already crisscrossing the ocean and giving them modular plants for ocean nourishment, which could all happen in the right ocean location. This way we could do light touches of ocean nourishment, but all around the world off different ships. I think shipping itself needs to decarbonize, so this could be part of the solution for the whole shipping industry.
There are desert areas of the ocean. By adding nutrients to these desert areas, we can make phytoplankton grow in large quantities.
It has a bunch of eggs in it.
Oh, yeah? Oh, gosh, it's amazing. Phytoplankton are tiny, you can't even see them, but they are the climate giants and they are the things that are actually going to save us. They provide 50% of the oxygen that we breathe on the Earth. And from our experiments, by putting in 200 litres of nutrients, which is about a 1 whale poo, we can actually sequester about a tonne of carbon.
But phytoplankton, some of which are algae, can grow too much, producing toxic algae blooms. You typically see this in stagnant or slow-moving rivers or lakes or on the coastlines.
But this does not happen in the open ocean. With a whale fecal plume, the nutrients are able to be used by phytoplankton productively instead of destructively.
This, proving their work is productive and not destructive, is the challenge. Studies on ocean fertilization aren't yet conclusive. And safely testing the science without harming sensitive ecosystems takes money, time, and expertise. For billionaires or anxious VCs looking for quick results, it's not ideal.
Billionaire philanthropists are really focused on impact, and they're looking for data and ways that they can measure that their dollars are making an impact on whatever issue they're interested in, from public health or education, you know, everything.
To actually do the science we're doing literally costs the amount of a blockbuster movie.
Today is a big day for the Waitlist team as they prepare to embark on a 4-day research trip. It's taken them a year to build their own biopod, which allows them to test the effects of their aquafood on a controlled area of the ocean. The biopod pumps air and nutrients into the water, growing phytoplankton.
The nutrient is essentially feeding the phytoplankton, which are in the seawater.
Why is it sinking at this end and slide at that end?
But the biopod's first trip into the wild doesn't go as expected. It keeps sinking.
Some of the aeration chambers didn't fire because of too much pressure, so we'll need a bigger pump to make that work. So yes, not exactly to plan, as a lot of experiments are, but we are going to get some pretty good data that will inform our next trial.
The experiment is scrapped and will need to be repeated, and that takes, you guessed it, money.
I was told point blank by a very prominent head of a venture capital fund that if I talk to a company who has a brilliant idea but a meh business plan, and then I talk to a company that has maybe not such a good idea but a very good business plan that's going to make money, I'm going to fund company B every time. And I really find this is a bit of a juxtaposition, because what we need to fund is these really good ideas that are great for the planet, but perhaps are not so great for your wallet.
The key issue right now for us in the diamond space is the declared divestment of Anglo from DBS. And as you know, Anglo holds 85% stake in DBS. Botswana, the government of the Republic of Botswana holds 15. We are resolute now, and we've communicated a firm intention to increase our stake in DBS to a controlling stake. We have lined up a number of potential collaborators with us, if I may put it that way. We have targeted funders, we have parties, we have the Oman Sovereign Wealth Fund, we have others who are willing and ready.
Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
At a time when policy in Washington is driving Wall Street, we draw a distinction between the rhetoric and the action, bringing you market-moving guests and original reporting. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Bringing you up to them in the news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Chevrian in Seoul, and this is Bloomberg.
Despite being an early mover, WhaleX's growth has been stunted by a lack of funding. Right now, WhaleX says its main support comes from Professor Wien and other private donations. In 2025, they hope to complete a crowdfunding campaign and strike deals with industry partners.
It's almost like what you need to do to write a successful science paper is sort of the opposite of what you need to do to sell a business model. You have all of these forces that encourage you to attract attention and be flashy and speak with utter confidence. In science, there's no such thing as 0% or 100% confidence.
In the meantime, the only other way to raise funds is to offer carbon credits.
Once you can prove and verify your carbon sequestration, then you can actually sell off your credits to a company. We're not quite there yet, but this is the aim that in the future this will happen.
So, step one for all these startups is figuring out how much carbon you've removed from the atmosphere, which, when you're dealing with a sample size the size of the ocean, is challenging enough. Then you need to apply a dollar amount to that carbon. And since the carbon offsets market is what you might call loosely regulated,
It's been very confusing, very wild, wild west.
that dollar amount is flexible. And while there is an existing framework to rely on for the calculation of carbon removal credits, there's no such thing for solar radiation management. Make Sunsets, for example, sell something it's called cooling credits.
We sell cooling credits, where 1 gram of SO2 in the stratosphere offsets the warming effect of 1 ton of CO2 for a year. That literally costs $16 per year for you to offset your carbon footprint for 1 year.
Mate Sunset's cooling credits are really quite murky in how they're calculated.
It'll be verified via existing satellite infrastructure that can already detect volcanic eruptions, and it's just infrared cameras. And so at scale, you don't have to trust us anymore. There's satellites that currently detect volcanic eruptions that can also detect our deployments at scale.
From an investor point of view, something like ocean fertilization, although it's very novel, the science is not quite there yet, there is a path to market through the EU carbon dioxide removal framework. There is a lot of rigorous work going into making sure that these credits do what they say they do. That is not the case for solar radiation management.
For now, the marriage between experimental geoengineering and the private sector is an imperfect union. But as the need for climate solutions grows, so too will the interest in unconventional methods.
We have to be able to crawl before we can walk, and then before we can run. The best analogy I can give is, Jeff Bezos, Google, they started in a garage. This is the garage you're looking at right now.
There is very little doubt that the pressures that are causing people to investigate geoengineering as a mature, rational option, that's just going to keep on keeping on. Every year, every decade that the world warms, we're going to need solutions that may seem increasingly less desperate.
And with all of these geoengineering concepts, there is an elephant with a colossal carbon footprint stomping around the room: human emissions.
It's not a solution to the problem. Climate change is caused by industrial greenhouse gas emissions going up into the atmosphere and warming the planet. And geoengineering isn't gonna reverse that basic fact. At a certain point, you do have to figure out how much risk you're willing to bear and what the penalties are for you if you choose wrongly.
When I visited Fernandez at IMAX's headquarters outside Toronto, we went to the facility where IMAX designs and maintains its cameras. The latest next-gen equipment was out with directors on filmed for IMAX sets, but there was still plenty of cool gear on view.
As the head of the finance department, do you look at all the things in this room and think, this costs that amount of money, this costs that amount of money?
Thankfully, no, I don't. When I think about cameras in general and what we, when we first, I'll give you a really prime example, the film cameras. When you thought about it, okay, are we building 2? Are we building 4? Are you building 8, right? And that's where I start to think about, well, what makes the most sense from a return perspective? Because yes, Nolan wants the cameras, but how many other filmmakers out there use the film cameras? The lens that I look at it through is essentially, how many do we build and in what way? Because the one thing is we are going to invest to build it right and to build it for longevity. But do you need 10 of them? No. Building 4, that was the right number. And do we potentially want to build a couple more? Maybe a couple more, but I don't think we need 10 because they won't always be in use all the time.
I imagine that at different points you need to tell people no. What's that process like for you?
Oh yeah, it's a key role in the CFO position. It is a word that most people are used to, and yet they still think you're not going to say it.
Have you ever thought about, or would you make a movie for a streaming service? Would you make a Netflix movie?
Man, that's a great question.
I mean, I'm waiting for one where I ask and you go, that was a shitty question.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you good at your job, bro. Like, this is actually the first time anybody's ever asked me that. You know, I'm not here to say what I would and wouldn't do in the future. You know, but the theatrical experience is one that means a great deal to me. It means a great deal to us. I feel a certain responsibility. Like if Fruitville had happened a calendar year later, it probably would have come out on streaming. You know, I've been fortunate enough that everything that I've written and directed has been a theatrical release. So I feel a duty to try to protect that. You know, but that's where I'm at today.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Lizzie Burden in Florence, Italy, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance.
Why is it that NFTs have not recovered in the same way that, say, Bitcoin has?
Bloomberg is covering all things crypto.
It's a pretty spectacular story.
The people.
This is the future. This is the 21st century economy.
The transactions.
It snapped up nearly $1 billion of Bitcoin.
And the technology.
We need to build a digital Fort Knox.
That gives people financial freedom, and that's a wonderful thing.
That's extraordinary.
We ride the wave that is Bitcoin.
Bloomberg Crypto, Tuesdays only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geoeconomic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Vonnie Quinn in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and this is Bloomberg.
I always said when I was Home Secretary and then Prime Minister, one of the things I had to do was to learn about the things that I had to forget. Because as a leader, very often there are things you just cannot talk to somebody else about. I think you can never 100% relax because you never quite know when there's going to be a phone call that you've got to respond to. Virtually every day brings tough moments.
Theresa Mary May has been duly elected to serve as a member for the said constituency.
Theresa May has served her country almost all of her life.
You're voting Conservative in the election?
No.
No.
Today, she's in the House of Lords, and she's co-president of Chatham House, a century-old London-based think tank that seeks to help governments and societies.
Her Majesty the Queen has asked me to form a new government, and I accepted.
From 2016 to 2019, she was Prime Minister and the leader of the Conservative Party. She served as Home Secretary for 6 years, the longest term in that role since 1951. A Member of Parliament for Maidenhead since the late 1990s, a local borough councillor before that. And she started her career working at the Bank of England.
I first thought about becoming an MP from about the age of 12 or 13.
Why?
It was about making a difference. That was the thing that I could do that would make a difference to people's lives, improve people's lives.
Do you remember the day where you say, right, I'm putting my hat in the ring?
I was a local councillor in one of the London boroughs, and like many women, I actually sort of waited for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and say, have you thought about this?
Why do you say like many women?
Well, I think it's one of the differences, certainly of my generation, probably still to a certain extent, is that men will often sort of map out, right, I'm going to be Prime Minister by the age of 25, whatever, and here's back of the envelope, here's how I'm going to do it. Whereas women tend to think, have I got the skills? Am I able to do it? And wait for somebody to say to them, I think you could.
The Labour Party may be about to spend several months of fighting and tearing itself apart. The Conservative Party will be spending those months bringing this country back together.
I had approached my time in Parliament in a different way. I wasn't one of those who joined